Ready for a Bible story? Me too. Today's story is Let My People Go. Exodus chapter 7 through chapter 10. A week later, God told Moses and Aaron to say to Pharaoh, "Let my people go to worship me." When Pharaoh refused, Aaron did as God commanded. He stretched his rod over the rivers, lakes, and ponds. Thousands of frogs came hopping up out of the water. Frogs were everywhere, in the people's houses and in the palace. They hopped onto beds and into the cooking. When the magicians tried, they too brought frogs out of the water. Pharaoh was greatly troubled. He had been too stubborn to let anyone know how much he hated the bloody water. Now there were frogs to make him miserable. Finally, he begged Moses and Aaron to ask God to take the frogs away. "I will let your people go to sacrifice to the Lord," he promised. And Moses asked, "When do you want God to destroy the frogs?" Pharaoh answered, "Tomorrow." Moses prayed, and on the next day, all the frogs died except those in the river. But Pharaoh got stubborn again and would not let the Israelites go, so there was another plague. This time, Aaron struck the dust with his rod, and the dust became lice. When the magicians tried, they could not do this. They told Pharaoh this is the work of God. Still, Pharaoh would not listen. One morning, when Pharaoh walked along the river, God sent Moses and Aaron to him. "Because you will not let Israel go," they said, "tomorrow God will send another plague. Great swarms of flies will fill your palace and the houses of the Egyptians. Everywhere you go, the flies will bother you, but there will be no flies in the house of the Israelites." When the swarm of flies came, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron again. "Tell your people to sacrifice to their God in Goshen," he said. But Moses replied, "That will not do. If the Egyptians see us offering sacrifices to God, they will kill us. Because the Egyptians believed oxen were sacred, they'd be angry if they saw the Israelites kill oxen to sacrifice to God." When Moses refused Pharaoh's offer, the king said, "I will let them go to the wilderness, only do not take them very far away." Moses answered, "We must go 3 days, a 3-day journey, and you must not break your promise." But when the flies were gone, Pharaoh grew stubborn again and refused to let the Israelites go. The next great plague was a cattle disease. Many cattle died of it, and Pharaoh became alarmed. When he sent a messenger to Goshen, he learned that the Israelites' cattle were all alive and well. Even after this, Pharaoh did not let the Israelites go. God kept telling Moses what to do next. This time, Moses sprinkled a handful of dust in the air before Pharaoh. Painful boils broke out on all the Egyptians. The magicians had so many boils they could not come to Pharaoh. Still, the king would not obey God. Then Moses said, "Tomorrow there will be a great hailstorm. Get all your cattle out of the field and have the people stay in their houses. If they don't, they will be killed." Some of the Egyptians believed Moses and hurried to their homes. Others did not listen to the warning and stayed in the fields. When the sky grew black and thunder roared, the Egyptians were afraid. They had never heard thunder or seen lightning like that before. Hailstones began to fall as fast as raindrops, and the lightning ran like fire along the ground. In the fields, every living thing was killed. But no storm came to Goshen, where the Israelites lived. Pharaoh was frightened. He called loudly to Moses and Aaron, "I have sinned. I and my people are wicked." He promised that the Israelites could go at once if God would stop the great storm. Moses answered, "I'll spread out my hands toward heaven as soon as I'm outside the city, and the storm will stop. Then you will know the earth belongs to God. But I know you and your people. You do not yet fear the Lord God." When the storm passed, Pharaoh looked out upon the bright sunshine, and his heart grew stubborn again. He was not willing to obey God. The hailstorm had destroyed all the growing crops, but the wheat and spelt were unharmed because they had not sprouted. The next plague, God told Moses, would be locusts. They would eat every green thing above the ground. When the Egyptians heard this, they hurried to Pharaoh and said, "How long are you going to let these men bother us? Let the Israelites go to worship their God." So Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and asked, "Whom do you intend to take with you to worship God?" Moses replied, "We will take all of our people, our flocks and herds." "Take only your men and let them sacrifice," Pharaoh said, and he sent Moses and Aaron away. When Moses left the palace, the Lord said, "Stretch out your hand for the locusts to come." Moses obeyed. An east wind began to blow. All day and all night it blew. In the morning, a great cloud of locusts appeared in the sky. They covered all Egypt except the land of Goshen. Again, Pharaoh was afraid. Hurriedly, he sent for Moses and Aaron. I have sinned against your God, the Lord God, and against you, he said. Now forgive me. Pray that God will take these locusts away, or I and my people will die. When Moses prayed, the Lord sent a strong west wind, and the locusts were blown into the Red Sea and drowned. But again, Pharaoh hardened his heart. God told Moses to stretch his hand toward heaven, and a great darkness would come upon the land. And so it was. For 3 days there was no light, no daylight, and no starlight. Pharaoh sent the last time for Moses and Aaron. He said, I will let all the people go, but they must not take their flocks and herds. Moses answered boldly, we will take everything we have when we go to serve our God. How angry Pharaoh was. He shouted, get out of my sight, and if I ever see your face again, I will kill you. Bravely, Moses answered, it will be just as you say, for you will never see my face again. But know this, God will send one more terrible plague upon you and your people. Then the Israelites will leave your land.